Can you also hear our colleagues, MEPs?
Yes, we do hear you.
Labrit.
Labrit. We hear you very well.
Labrit. Labrit. Good morning. How are you?
So we can start also the Facebook stream, right?
I'm starting the Facebook stream right now. It will take like 10 to 15 seconds, depending on the connection, but it should be okay now in a couple of seconds.
All right.
Okay, we're live, yes.
Good morning, everybody. So welcome to this briefing / discussion about the German presidency and one of its most important tasks, getting agreement on the EU budget for the next 7 years, which is called Multi-Annual Financial Framework, or MFF, how we call it here, and the new recovery fund, which comes on the top of it. So, as you can see, a lot of money is at stake, which also means that there are a lot of diverging interests. And that means that the battle for the budget and for the recovery fund will be very difficult. And we will be discussing here what Baltic states might get out of it. And therefore, we have 4 members of European Parliament joining us here today. And here in studio, together with me in Brussels, we have an MEP from Lithuania, Rasa Juknevičienė. Good morning. Good morning. She's from EPP Group. Also, another Lithuanian MEP from Socialists and Democrats, Juozas Olekas. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
And we also have Robert Zile from Latvia joining. Let's see if we can see if Robert Zile from European Conservatives and Reformist Group.
Good morning. I hope you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Thank
Good
you.
morning. And if we go from the south to north, last but not least is Sven Mikser from Socialists and Democrats from Estonia. Good morning, Mr. Mikser.
A very good morning. I hope you can hear me as well.
We can hear you very well. So finally, we have sorted out the sound and everything. But before we go into discussion and then take it further to your questions, I will ask Natalie from Lithuania briefly to explain how you can ask questions on this platform so our debate here goes as smooth as possible. Natalie, can you help us out?
Yes, hello. Good morning, everybody. The first technical comment that we're getting, that the sound from the studio from you, Ilse, is very low, is very quiet. So if you could ask the technician maybe to sort of put it up a bit. So that's one thing. And while they're doing that in the Vox box, we have over 30 participants now joining the Zoom. So in case when you have a questions that you need to ask, there is a button, raise your hand on your screen. So if you please raise your hand, then Ilse can see who has a question, who would like to sign, and then she can give the floor to the journalist or to the person who wants to ask the question. Another possibility, you can type your question in the chat window. So then we will also see the chat, and then we can also just read the question and ask it when the time comes. If you have any difficulty or technical problem or something, so you can also put it in the chat and we will see it and we will try to react. So that's it from me.
All right, thank you, Natalie. So before we start the discussion, so what is the current status? Germany has started its presidency of the EU Council. German Chancellor Angela Merkel was here yesterday talking to MEPs, explaining the 5 priorities of German presidency, which are fundamental rights, cohesion, climate protection, digitalization, and Europe's responsibility in the world. But of course, the most urgent question is getting everybody agreeing on the EU budget. So Commission's proposal is 1.1 trillion euros, and that is topped with a new recovery fund of 750 euros. 500 are a loan in grants, and 250 are in loans. At least that's the current proposal. And next week, here in July 17th and 18th, all the Prime Minister and heads of states will come to Brussels to discuss that. So that will be a very difficult discussion. very important, as we know, Danish Prime Minister had to postpone her wedding to come to this important discussion. So let me just start by asking you the question. So it is very important debate. What is your take on the initial take on the budget and recovery fund from the Baltic perspective? Is it really addressing our concerns? We can start with you.
Thank you so much. Of course, very important time, and we in the Parliament also are following very carefully and are discussions. In my political group, I know that maybe even an extraordinary session will be held at the end of July because of it will depend on the outcome of the debates in the European Council. Our understanding, our priorities are very clear and they still are the same. Of course, first of all, we are happy to be part of the European Union, and it's important that we have opportunity to develop our countries together with the European Union. When we go somewhere to other countries, we were together in Soviet Union before, so we can see the difference. Countries, they are members of the European Union, and we already made difference in our infrastructure everywhere, and those countries, they were not. But speaking about concrete projects and priorities, I would like to say, I don't know if all countries, but we in my political group, my delegation, Lithuanian delegation,
I'm very sorry. Can you hear me now? Sorry, we don't have the sound. Nobody can hear anything. So could you, Ilse, could you check with the technician there that there's something wrong? I apologize, but we
So
only
now
see
the
some
sound
construction work going on.
construction work is going on. So the sound is fine now. So
Could they try to make it a bit louder, because we really can't hardly hear you?
Also, they can.
they don't want to make it louder because the drilling works that are going on here in the Parliament can be heard even more.
We told them so they can stop to go.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So you were missing out on some of the discussions that we.
Yes, the last couple of sentences. So
Maybe they didn't hear the last couple of sentences. Maybe when you started to explain from the same perspective how you use this budget, which is now 1.1, not as much as Parliament wanted, 1.3. How does it look from your perspective?
So it's good that discussion started on the future of the budget, to increase budget as such for European Union, but not this time yet. And of course, our priorities are very close to those German presidency they introduced themselves. Of course, pandemic, future of European Union. We would like to see that this money you mentioned, additional, how to say, money, we think, my group, we think that it has to be delivered or used in the manner not for the past but for the future, really for the future. And this is, I think, a problem sometimes when countries maybe are not doing exactly achieving the same goals as European Union or leadership of European Union wants to. It goes more to infrastructure but not for the future development of economy and other countries. But our priorities also are maybe they are not fulfilled enough. For example, military mobility, defense and security. This is, I think, could be more ambitious understanding, because COVID crisis was the example that we have to be much more ready for crisis in the future. And of course, our very regional projects like Rail Baltica, like in Lithuania we have a nuclear plant shutting. I mean, we have to shut down to finish this project and many other regional projects, including, of course, agriculture, where our farmers, they would like to have more equal attitude towards their money coming for them. I would like to draw attention also what I would like to see in a more ambitious way, manner to see the future of this term is Eastern Partnership. I am not hearing enough. I don't see enough ambitious movement forward. Western Balkans, okay, we support very much. We think that it's important priority, but Eastern Partnership is a little bit in stagnation up to now, and we would like to see more ambitious politics.
All right, thank you. Maybe we can go to your colleague in Estonia, Mr. Mikser. What is view from Tallinn, from Estonia? How does this budget looks like, recovery fund, and are really Baltic sort of thoughts and worries taken into account?
Well, thank you very much. I didn't hear everything that my good colleague Rasa just said, but I would like to say that obviously now the budget discussions or the MFF discussions have been somehow merged together with the discussions about the recovery fund. And we are talking about significant amounts of money. And obviously when it comes to MFF, then the Baltic countries are very much concerned about the expenditure side. We definitely have been among the countries who have made very good use of the previous or the ongoing MFF money, and we have advanced quite a bit with the European assistance in many policy areas, in many fields, and we do not want to be punished for our own success. There are certain priorities that Rasa already mentioned: the equal treatment of the farmers, the critical infrastructure, the connections. We believe that the countries on the geographical margins of the European Union should be treated adequately by the Union when it comes to developing connections and that are critical both from the point of view of economic development as well as from the security point of view. So these are important issues, obviously. At the same time, there's a lot of work to be done to come to an agreement when it comes to the revenue side of the budget. We have been talking for quite some time about the possible own resources for the European Union, particularly in those areas that are very difficult to address by individual member states, even very large ones. For example, the taxation of the digital giants, global companies who operate in the area of the IT and digital, but also certain other environment-related areas where own resources could be foreseen. But there is no agreement just as yet when it comes to the recovery fund, and obviously also the revenue side, or the issue of how to pay back the massive amounts of money that the European Union is collectively going to borrow. This process will drag on till the year 2058, and the discussions are still ongoing as to how much of that money that we need to pay back would come from the contributions of the member states, and how much we actually need to raise by European means, take from the European taxpayers or from some other own revenue source. So these are difficult discussions, but I think that the German presidency, Germany being the largest and the most influential member state in the Union, the German presidency is quite uniquely positioned in order to actually achieve a compromise, because we know where the fault lines lie. And I think that Germany, when it tries to build a sort of European middle way, is quite uniquely positioned, and therefore I have very high hopes. But obviously, there are other issues that Chancellor Merkel yesterday drew attention to. For example, the internal issues when it comes to the rule of law and democracy situation inside the Union, but also some external challenges. We are seeing quite turbulent times when it comes to the global geostrategic landscape, and obviously when Europe wants to play its due role, we need to come together and form a common understanding of what the European Union's role should be here.
Thank you so much. And now I will turn to Latvia, to Mr. Zile. So what is your take on the budget, the recovery fund? Mr. Mikser already raised some concerns, for instance, regarding how we will pay back the money that the European Commission most likely is going to borrow in the markets, 500 million euros. So how does it look from your perspective?
Yeah, well, sorry, Ilse, I almost didn't hear your question, but well, I will do my best with the introductory words, and then we will try to improve noise, because it's really, this example shows how digital Europe has a problem. Actually, it's not the first time when we have such situations, particularly when we are connecting with Brussels, with European Parliament. Well, just after this meeting, I have as a member of contact group on MFF and a recovery plan, meeting with David Sassoli at the group, contact group, where we will make a final tactics from European Parliament side, how to do, expecting next week possible progress, at least on a council level, and how to increase the Parliament role. It seems that the key points, conditions for a Parliament in general, or majority of the Parliament, would be to give a consent for MFF only in case if it's not cut in the Council, MFF, regular MFF 7 years budget. The second issue, majority of the groups would like to see clear binding commitment from the Council side on own resources, meaning there are several possible own resources which are on the table in the Parliament for years. And the third, perhaps important, how to see the role of European Parliament in recovery part of the package recovery plan. So we will see, this seems really a majority of the Parliament, even if some political families are disagree on some issues, also partly in my group, in European Conservatives and Reformists. Coming to Baltic states' interests, mainly.
Too long.
Yes, we just, Mr. Zile's picture has frozen and we have lost sound.
Expected to get most of this money which is necessary to finalize this project from Connecting Europe facility. Actually, its Commission proposal shows it's not enough. So we can get this money perhaps in from other funds, from React EU, and also from RFF, meaning Resilience and Recovery Fund, which is earmarked for the countries, but there are still not yet clear how it fit. But definitely, Baltic states are interested to finalize during next MFF period this project, and it's very important. The other issues, I think, in our joint fight for the money, I think it's agriculture funds. Sven already mentioned this issue with the discriminatory direct payments in the first pillar of agriculture funds, and also a cohesion fund, which perhaps, of course, through the React Europe in the first 2 years would be front-loaded in 21 and 22. But then we can expect there will be significant cut comparably with the current old MFF period, which is not in our interest. So, and also I think on RFF, which is the biggest recovery plan, there is 300 in Commission proposal. There is 310 billion grants and all 250 billion loans. There are criteria from the distribution currently is a bit strange. There are three main criteria: GDP per capita, number of population, and also unemployment level between 2015 and 2019, which is pre-pandemic situation. So that's mean, I think, and it's very how to say robust criteria, and I think it's necessary to change from the Baltic perspective, particularly Latvia and Lithuania. We lost many of working age people during the 2015-2019. They went to the Western EU member states. Actually, that's why our unemployment level was actually lower, registered unemployment level in other countries, even the jobs were being lost. And it's not calculated in the distribution. That's why those countries in Mediterranean level, like Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, they have a pretty different labor market legislations, and most of the people are better registered unemployed people in their own countries and not going so much abroad. So that's why I think still Council can do very much. Parliament, as you know, cannot do very much, just take a political pressure with a possible rejection for a consent procedure for all general package. So that's the situation.
Thank you so much. There was one issue also what your colleague in Estonia, Mr. Mikser, raised about the money and how we will pay back the money that will be raised, those 500 billion euros. So is there a risk that we will be in a debt for the next 30 years or so?
Yeah. So actually, in a current Commission proposal, there is 7.4 billion, which already can cover some interest rate payments for loans during this period until 2027. And Commission plan says that we have to repay the depreciation or the main part of the loans only after 2028, which means we have still time to decide about two options, actually. The first one, how to repay until 2058, yeah, very long period ahead. So either we can create our own resources, which is very difficult. And actually, Angela Merkel yesterday, after presentations of the leaders of the political groups, she said very interesting point on own resources. She definitely sent the signals that it is a very difficult issue because some of these own resources are already coming to the national budgets. That's why I think it's pretty difficult to expect that there would be successful legally binding commitment on all resources that affect the plastic and non-recycled plastic. So that means we have another resources. But if we improve the economy growth in Europe, it means the money on the loans in the long run can make the more easy to repay back the main part of the loan. So I think it's still the most important issue, most important task is to create the growth of economy in European Union during the next few years. Otherwise, how we can repay loans have a different issue. So I see it's not a main obstacle how to repay in the long run these loans. But of course, we can expect that would be cut of MFF after 2028, but I don't think it's too early to say that it is the only solution.
I'd like to turn to our Lithuanian colleague here in Brussels in studio. Mr. Olekas, so what is your take on the budget recovery fund? And maybe you can elaborate a little bit more what is there for the farmers in common agricultural policy? How it has changed? The demands of Baltic farmers were coming also to Brussels quite a lot, protesting here. Have they been heard? And have we received enough?
Okay, thank you for questions. Thank you for organizing this discussion. I think we started very early. Just yesterday, Germany announced the proposal, but in general, I think that we can evaluate very positively that this is proposal for the just very short time for recovery and for long time period. I think this proposal allows us to build the more united and more stronger Europe with higher influence in general in the global situation and play more important role. My colleagues mentioned different aspects of this proposal. I fully agree that it's a step forward, and we need, from our Baltic perspectives, maybe more ambitious action around the European Union. Rasa mentioned the Eastern Partnership, but I think in general we should look forward, for example, for the more influence in Africa, because the battle for Africa from China, Russia, is very important for us, and we should keep in mind this aspect. But of course, talking in our group of Baltic the MEPs, I think it's very important to look for our region, and we have some positive points here. The mentioning of the Rail Baltic, I think it's important for all three countries. For Lithuania, as I mentioned, the Ignalina nuclear power station closure for this project, and the main aspect that you asked me is about our agriculture sector. From my point of view, I'm a little bit disappointed with this proposal because it's not mentioning in nowhere in this proposal about the external convergence. All our farmers waiting the proposal from our agreement from when we entering the European Union. Then in 2013 we will have the equal direct payment, but later in 2013 it was the recommendation from the European Council that 2020. Now 2020, and we didn't have any proposal in this. And I think for this question, we should unite our efforts, not only our farmers, but our MEPs, our presidents, our members of commission, that we should reach this agreement. That because if we were looking for the future proposals, it's very difficult to promise that they will be implemented if you not implement the former agreements. This is the main question, how we can solve. And on the other hand, it's very difficult to have a transparent competition between the farmers from different countries when requirements are growing up very fast, especially with the Green Deal. We strongly support the Green Deal. It's new opportunities for farmers, but it's impossible to actively participate and achieve the results if this is not equal the basis for this competition. And I think this is the very open question. And if I may just mention 2 points additionally, I think we should put additional attention to the education and research. Rasa a little bit mentioned that we're looking for the future. For the future generation, the new instrument, new proposal. I think it's very important that all our young generation from our countries should have the similar or the same opportunities to achieve the education, traveling, to have the possibilities to have this higher education everywhere in Europe. And the third one, or maybe last not least, this is the health. After the COVID and pandemic, we all see that we need more stronger European reaction on the health, including the public health, but also health treatment, especially keeping in mind the rare disease and cancer and others, but it's impossible to use the subsidiarity in each country to achieve the similar result. It's a disaster that the European Union citizens in one country can have the very high level of healthcare and medical treatment. In other, they died from these diseases, being which is impossible to have in smaller, especially countries, especially for rare disease. This is I think we should evaluate or improve this proposal in our discussion about these two instruments. Thank you.
But let me try to follow up.
Yeah, okay.
So we have been discussing from Latvia, we heard also from Romania and Estonia that we need some more money for Eastern Partnership, for military mobility, as you mentioned, for agriculture, for farmers. But the budget is not so flexible. There isn't as much money as there is. So what's going to happen next week in the Euro Council, the countries will be trying to deal, it's a game of give and take. So if you want to receive more money for your agriculture, there are certain areas you probably have to give in. So which areas should you say Baltics or Lithuania should give in those discussions next week in the European Council?
This is not my position to propose for the presidents or leaders of our countries, but in general, I think that the money is quite a big amount of money. If you put the MFF and if you put the recovery fund, reactive fund, it's quite a lot of money, and we should prepare for what is the basis. In my view, I think despite that this is the past, the agriculture sector is very important, because we felt all in this pandemic situation that we need the borders was blocked, and we need to improve on the possibilities of our agriculture sector to put on the same level of the same base, and then we can go. We can, from my point of view, for example, Ignalina nuclear power station. We close and Russia, indeed, this Russia company doing the business of closing of this nuclear power station, and we putting the money here. Maybe we can a little bit stop and wait for some years, but to reach the equal possibilities for all farmers in 3 Baltic countries, because 3 our countries, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, they left with this very low direct payment. We should manage. I suggest our president to manage this issue fast, and then we go forward.
So, from all the wish lists we have, we will not give up on the direct payments. So that's very important.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we can give up on something in order to get those direct payments?
We can pay more.
I'm not sure if the plant closure has to be postponed because it will cost even more. I think opposite. It's very important to close it as soon as possible and finish that job, because we have to finish this job. But of course, this time I think it will happen as always happened before. Somewhere will be put little bit, added little bit, somewhere not. And I don't see any breakthrough, in composition or negotiations of the budget. So my hopes are, I see that Germany, they are very skillful on unifying, on negotiating, on trying to put on the table negotiations in very skillful manner, I would say. And I think they will finish this budget this month. But for the future, we still have a lot of questions about the budget as such, and to increase European Union budget as such is a difficult task, of course. Not all countries would like to do that, but if we would like to have different kind of breakthrough, without additional money, as now they came from recovery fund, we will not do that every time, of course, and refunding will come in future. So without increasing the budget as such, I don't see any possibility to have happy farmers everywhere, to have happy tourism sector somewhere in the south, and that will be all the time the same negotiations and nothing new.
All right, and we have our Estonian colleague who would like to join the discussion, Mr. Mikser. And while he's joining the discussion, maybe I can ask some of the. If people have questions, you can raise hands. So in the system, the little blue hands, and then we will take some questions as well. So, Mr. Mikser, you wanted to add?
Yes. Thank you. Obviously, you're right in saying that the total amount of money in the budget is a finite number. So it's not unlimited, and if you want to give more to one policy area, there's less money left over for everything else. On the other hand, when you, for example, speak about Eastern Partnership, then it's a question of where this money is, which is the exact budget line. We know that up until now we have had a separate instrument for partnerships, for Eastern Partnership, but also for the Southern Neighborhood. And as of next MFF, it will be merged together into a much larger pot of external policy instrument. So there is not necessarily less money for Eastern Partnership, but we will have, on a yearly basis, we will have to fight harder to actually get sufficient attention to the Eastern Partnership. When it comes to defense and security policy, then obviously I would like to say the situation is rather critical, because compared to the original budget proposal, which was, for example, 13.5 billion for the European Defence Fund, we today only have 8 to 9 billion, and the cuts, as Rasa referred to, are even more dramatic when it comes to military mobility budget. So there are policy areas that we will need to keep a very close attention to. But for example, agricultural, the direct payments, or the equal treatment of farmers, to put it in a sort of layman's term, I think here it's not necessarily about the total amount of money foreseen for that policy in the European budget, but it's about how you distribute the existing money between individual countries so as to create equal playing field for everyone. So it's not only about the overall budget ceiling, but obviously when it comes to the overall amount of money, then we are seeing something that we are very much used to seeing. The Commission putting its proposal forward, the member states at the Council being rather more conservative, especially the net payers, and then the Parliament trying to exert its influence in making sure that all the necessary policy areas actually get sufficient money. But I very much agree with the colleagues that the critical thing for Europe collectively is that we need to retain and build on the competitive edge on the global scene. We need to see that we do not forget about policy areas such as digitalization and the Green Deal or the climate issues, including the energy policy, because that will determine on whether we emerge from this crisis as stronger players in the global competition, also economically, or as a weakened player.
Thank you. So let's see if we have any questions from the floor. So while people are still getting ready to answer questions, let me just use this moment, and I wanted to ask. We started to talk about this budget's own resources. That's also fundamental. Yesterday hinted about that and said that the countries still have to be careful how we decide on that. Because now, in terms of taxes, we don't want to impose new taxes. So I know that you have to leave soon, so I would like to ask you, so what is your take on the budget's own resources? I mean, for now we have custom sugar levies, custom duties that are part of their own resources. What about digital tax? Any other things? Does that work?
Still, there are only the beginning of the discussions. So I have not yet very clear idea myself what kind of, but I also can just say that everybody can say that without additional money, be it incomes from national budgets, increasing percentage of GDP, or new taxes or some kind of incomes, would be impossible to fulfill all these requirements or all these needs we are putting on the table. So I cannot say today about the concrete taxes. Of course, as member of EPP, I am not very much engaged to have higher taxes according to my understanding. But on the other hand, it's impossible to deliver money not having money.
So, just one, if I may ask, there's one question that we received online, and you praised Germany when its presidency, because that's hopefully will solve some of the problems. And from Delphi in Latvia, there's a question that usually presiding nations, among other tasks, push their own interests and cooperate with partners with the same interests. In what topics do you see a real possibility to find common goals with Germany that would help to solve issues we Baltic states are more concerned of, for instance, besides overall MFF?
I think almost everything I heard yesterday from Angela Merkel, be it in plenary session or in our political group, I share almost everything. What she mentioned on her priorities, including, for example, she mentioned as well transatlantic relationship, American, European, United States and European relationship, which is very important, I think, for Baltic states. One of the most important security issues, some people are concerned on that. So recovery, I mean pandemic, overcoming pandemic, digitalization, and everything is also on our agenda. So I cannot accept maybe that I will repeat myself saying that, for example, Eastern Partnership was not mentioned almost at all. Africa was mentioned, Western Balkans were mentioned, but not Eastern Partnership at all. So there are some differences, or for example, energy security issues related with Nord Stream 2 or nuclear plants, the Rosatom they are building, it also was not mentioned. So I think here we have some differences with the German position on Russian influence via energy security to have influence in the European Union and not only.
Thank you so much. Thank you for participating in our discussion.
Thank you. Good luck.
But we will continue, and I will now turn to Latvia with the same question. When we look at the German presidency and Latvia and Baltic states, some interests diverge and some interests we have in common. So which probably are the most interesting, which interests we see we do not have in common when it comes to the presidency and its priorities?
Yeah, well, I'm sometimes saying that Latvia for years played in foreign affairs policy and other critical EU issues role like a small Germany, because for years, particularly when Merkel was so long time, we can see that always we followed the German on the critical and serious issues on German position, almost always. I think this time we have to be a bit more realistic. So because Germany is, well, they are playing their own national interests, and you can see it from the presentation. Yesterday actually was very interesting, Angela Merkel presentation. You have to combine with von der Leyen's presentation later on, and Manfred Weber's presentation, EPP leader from Christian Socialist Union from Germany, well, partner party in Merkel's coalition. And then you can combine the views. And you can see why, for example, the criteria from the distribution of recovery fund is such like it's done. For example, Manfred Weber, not Angela Merkel, said that about Italian doctor who had to, in a very difficult times when Germany was not showing solidarity in pandemic with Italian medical system and with Italy at all. So there was some kind of sorry. But if we are looking on the Baltic states perspective, of course we can understand that it was very painful times when Italy was as the first country who hit in Europe with a high level of pandemic. But it doesn't mean that we have to just to give money, and that's all right. Forget about our Baltic state interests. That's why I think we have to be very strong of determination of our interests. And as already been touched, this agriculture sector. The more important, like Sven Mikser said, for us is not the level of direct payments, but equality of direct payments. So let's put on a table redistribution. And actually, I have to remind in the Commission proposal, there are 4 billion for the direct payments, first pillar agriculture funds, 4 billion euros, which is not divided yet. So actually, there are not divided, and with a aim, it's aim to improve, how to say, well, obstacles of pandemic created in agriculture sector. What does it mean? So nobody actually knows. And perhaps this is a fund which we can use for more equal distribution of direct payments, for example. So that's why I think we have to be not blind, look on one eyes with the big players in Europe, but for the other eyes, at least on our own interests in Baltic states.
Thank you. And we have one more question from Delphi in Lithuania. And I will start with Mr. Mikser. I will ask you this question. What was the reaction in Latvia and in Estonia to the Lithuanian president's decision not to come to Estonia? And from your point of view, can that impact the common Baltic states stand on MFF in the next week's negotiations?
First of all, on the, I would also like to very briefly comment on the previous question regarding the German presidency. With the recent memory of Estonia's presidency, and I happened to work on the executive side at the time of Estonia's presidency. I know that you always push for your national interest around the council table, but perhaps less so when you are holding the presidency. As even Germany as the president, they have the task of finding consensus and bringing all the players together. And when you look at, for example, the natural divide between the net payers into the common European budget and the net recipients from the European budget, then Germany definitely has been sitting and will be sitting on the side of the net payers. But as the facilitator of an agreement, it will actually have to take much more moderate stance on that. So I think that in some ways, actually, Germany as the presidency may act slightly differently from how it would act as just a member state around the table of the council. So I'm quite optimistic that Germany will actually be able to build a consensus on those critical issues. Be it, well, it may not be a matter of weeks, but definitely during the half year, they will advance us quite a bit along that road. When it comes to the Baltic cooperation, I think that we are bound together by common interest in very many policy areas, and we will continue to work very closely together. We just had an example of that yesterday when we were voting on a number of files that had to do with the ground transport, the truck drivers. There was a very strong camp of Central Eastern European countries who voted together across political divide. But obviously, when it comes to issues like that, we will also have to find allies because even the Central Eastern European countries together will not present a critical weight so as to be able to overturn other policy divides. But I think that we have had an exemplary cooperation, and I have no doubt whatsoever that we will continue to have very good cooperation inside the European Parliament as well as elsewhere.
Do you think that the Lithuanian president's action not to come to Estonia will not change anything in the sort of Baltic dynamics?
Well, on a strategic level, I think that, well, we will have individual policy differences and perhaps an occasional snap here and there, but I don't think that will affect our long-term cooperation, because we are bound together by a strategic interest in so many policy areas.
Right. And Mr. Zile, what is your take? Do you think that Latvian Prime Minister, Estonian Prime Minister will not shake hands with the Lithuanian president next week, but at least they will talk to him as good friends as they were before, or something has cracked in the relationship between Lithuania and Latvia and Estonia?
Of course, it was a very visible step of the Lithuanian president not to come to Saaremaa for a meeting with colleagues from Baltic states, but at the same time, I think it shouldn't create the same attitude as you described, that our three prime ministers will not to communicate and to cooperate on MFF issue and recovery plan. I don't think that would be just very sad, sorry. And this particular issue, this energy, electricity issue, I would say so. We don't have a time to debate it. It's a pretty complicated but from a political point of view, we have to remember that we used to have difficulties, for example, with Lithuania on railway line, which was destroyed and later rebuilt and so for a year. So, but it doesn't mean that during those years we didn't cooperate on other issues. That's why I really think that prime ministers and also MEPs and others have to understand that there is a different interest, different views on these particular electricity issues, but we have to cooperate on any other issues as the Baltic states. Thank you.
All right, so what do Lithuanians think? Do you still hope for Latvian and Estonian support in MFF discussions?
Yes, I think so. I think so. Yeah, indeed, I think so. We are much more stronger being together than separate each country. And I think that we always welcome the deeper cooperation between our regional countries, all three Baltic countries, and maybe involving Poland or Finland in this Nordic Baltic region in general. But this is the issue which I think our president will manage for the future. I don't know the deeper reason for this decision of president, but I hope that this will not stop our future stronger and deeper cooperation in the region, because we just discussed some minutes before about the regional project, about the regional influence, about the regional problems. Eastern Partnership is the same problem for all of the more friendly our neighborhood, more stronger our neighborhood, more democratic our neighborhood is. It's our main goal for this region, and I hope that our presidents will have the possibilities to explain, to discuss, and to solve this. Maybe this moment it's not a very welcome moment, but I hope that in future we will have the much more stronger cooperation, because in all fields for many years, when we joined the European Union, or way to join the European Union, or democracy development, always we have been stronger when we have been united. And I think that this is our future: stronger regional cooperation and stronger influence in all decision makers. Here in the European Parliament, we also have the format when we discuss the Baltic Club and discuss the issue that is important for our region, and the same, I think, for our presidents.
You mentioned regional cooperation and regional projects, and Rail Baltica is one of such projects. Can we be sure that financing for Rail Baltica it's not under threat in the new MFF?
We see the proposal from Germany that there are some increasing for this project, and we welcome very much. And here in the Parliament, we have some discussion about that, and we have support from in general, and all. Till the negotiations not ended, we can say that everything is will be well done. But I hope that this regional project for very important, not only for our three countries. Maybe now it's important that to build and it's opening the possibilities to travel, but it's also for all European Union. The people from the south, they can reach the north more quickly. The trade can go faster, and especially when this pandemic is happening, we need to have the resilience, and especially for communication, and rail transport is one of the very important one, and also the same with the Green Deal. We can be talking about the auto transport or the rail. The rail is more greener than car transport.
All right, let's play a little forecast game. So next week on Friday and Saturday there's a European Council. So what is your forecast? Will leaders of countries agree on the budget and recovery funds in July, or will it drag out in September, in autumn? So, Mr. Zile, Mr. Mikser.
Yeah, if I can start, so I think maybe not on 17th, on 18th, but during July there would be deal, at least for the recovery plan part of this recovery package in general. Most likely, I think it would be general MFF and recovery plan agreement somewhere in July. But at least the recovery plan should be agreed with the remaining part of MFF decided later. Why? I think otherwise citizens will not understand why leaders can go to the vacations in August as always and not to make their own work. So I think it would be wrong message to citizens.
Mr. Mikser, what is your take?
Well, I think there's very strong pressure on the European leaders to come to some sort of an agreement, but we all know that the significant differences do exist at this point. So there are still some hurdles that need to be cleared for the agreement to be acceptable to everyone. So I am not one who's sitting around the council table, so I don't have the opportunity of reading the body language of the individual leaders, but we know that there's enormous pressure, and usually these agreements happen when the leaders feel that they have their backs against the wall, and I think we are getting pretty close to that point. But we all remember that there was an expectation at one point that MFF would be agreed to. Would come to an agreement before the expiry of the previous parliament and previous commission's working time. This didn't happen, so I think that we have seen this process delayed quite a bit already.
Do you think that the European leaders' backs are against the wall already or not yet?
I don't know exactly, but as optimist, I think that they can reach the agreement in July, but realistically, maybe it happen in September.
So, but then what happens next? Next, Parliament has to vote on the budget.
Yeah.
But your backs will be against the wall as well, because if the Council decides on the budget, you are not happy with their decision, for instance. Will you have guts to vote no to the budget and recovery fund that everybody is waiting for?
You know, the best agreement will anyone is not happy. I think we should understand that it's negotiation. It's shortage of money in general, because we all think from our region, from Lithuania, that European Union should have the bigger budget, and this is not yet happened. But we should see, because if some steps forward. Now we can say that there are on the German proposal steps forward, and we agree on that, and we will try to fight, or maybe to find the possibility to do some changes. You mentioned, and I said about the direct payment, about the external covenant. It's indeed very important, but maybe that our leaders can decide some kind of additional instrument or how they compensate this situation. We will see. We should get the product from the council and then discuss and maybe with some set on our hands to support him or oppose, and we'll see what is the product will be.
Mr. Mikser, so what do you think? Parliament will basically be put in the corner, right? When the Council decides on the budget, Parliament can only approve it. Realistically, there is not a big chance that you will vote against it, right?
Well, I believe it may have been Kissinger who once said that in politics it's not a good idea to definitely say what you are not going to do in the future. So I think that the Parliament will have to make its position heard and felt by the Council, and we are a constructive player. I think that we have seen quite a bit of sort of interinstitutional infighting in the European Union, where everyone wants to elevate their own position, be it the Council, the Commission, or the Parliament. But actually, we are all fighting together for the same common interest, the European interest. So I think that we have to behave constructively, but also make it very clear as to where our red lines are, and then we can, as Juozas said, I think that the compromise is always something with which no one is entirely happy, but with which everyone can live.
Mr. Zile, do you think that Parliament theoretically could vote against the budgets if it differs so much, for instance, from what Parliament wants. And also, Charles Michel, President of the Euro Council, hinted that MFF actually might be even smaller than the Commission has proposed.
Well, I think this time Parliament is playing a negotiation role, even if we have only this consent procedure, much stronger than in the previous MFF. And thanks to Sassoli, I think he organized very well this negotiation team and contact group for different political groups, representatives. And we are trying always to say this tax. He already mentioned the three most visible Parliament's position why we can approve or disapprove the Council decision, which means so we deliver the conditionality or some kind of red line. So one of them, as you already mentioned, it is a cutoff in MFF, in traditional MFF, which of course could be somehow compensated through the payments inside from the recovery plan to this traditional MFF programs like Agriculture Cohesion Fund. So there could be some fine-tuning. Own resources is another issue, and the role of Parliament on recovery plan is a third issue currently, looks like. So what does it mean if it will not be fulfilled in a 100% of the Parliament's conditionality, as I would say? My guess is things has changed since the pandemic started and Commission and French and German leaders came with this recovery plan with a huge billions, hundreds of billions of grants and loans, particularly grants. So since that for the Parliament is absolutely difficult to say that even with such significant increase of money, which could be received by the citizens in different member states, whatever is the internal fighting and distribution level and so on, I think for Parliament would be very difficult to disapprove whatever Council decide, honestly speaking. So that's why I think even Parliament is showing rightly the muscles, but I think at the end muscles would be not enough. This is my personal guess.
So Parliament will have to vote on the budget. Does Parliament also will have to vote on the recovery fund?
This is what Parliament is trying to fight about the role of European Parliament on recovery plan, meaning all those new funds like RFF, like Resilience and Recovery Fund, like EU React and on. But the biggest one is RFF. So that's why it's still not clear how far Council will give on which paragraph of treaties, this famous 122, but well, whatever it happened, I think Parliament at least would like to see scrutiny role on the payments coming out from recovery plan. But we will see. Legally, I understand our role is only on traditional MFF as a consent procedure on this stage coming from the Commission proposal.
So do you agree that Parliament has to play a bigger role in the budgets, and we're also now approving the recovery fund, so we don't know what the legal base is going to be yet?
I think so. We are elected from our citizens, and in the future, I think that Parliament, if you look for the history, the role of Parliament is growing. And if you looking for the future, for the deeper European Union integration, I think one of the possibility and one of the requirements is that to strengthening the European Parliament law, including the Parliament role on adopting the MFF in this guide, and the budget is one of the very important decision. And without the budget, it's very difficult to implement all these programs. And for that, the European Parliament role should grow in the future.
Parliament has to fight back.
Oh, negotiate. You can say more friendly, negotiate for the future.
Right. Any final remarks, Mr. Mikser, Mr. Zile?
Well, I think we covered quite a bit of ground, and I'm cautiously optimistic that an agreement will be found. I'm cautiously optimistic that the German presidency will surely understand how much weight they carry on their shoulders, and they will. I think in some ways we are lucky to have a presidency in the hands of the largest and the most influential EU country at this critical times, because there are truly a number of huge challenges ahead, and we need to be able to fulfill our role in these critical times.
Well, I would say this is really a very critical time, and I hope after German presidency and possible good compromise on MFF and a recovery plan. But it's important that all those decisions will not create differences among member states' living conditions, economic, social conditions, even higher than they are now. So this is very important. And the evaluation of German presidency and new MFF and new this recovery plan, I think it would be evaluated by next 4 or 5 years how it looks like. So if it's a wrong direction, more differences among member states, then it's a bad deal. If it would be less differences, then it's a good plan and good deal.
Despite the pandemic influence on our life, I think this German's proposals is a good step forward, and we should negotiate for the future, and this allows us to create the better possibilities and conditions for each European citizen for the future.
Thank you so much. On this optimistic note, we're going to end today. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and keep tuned in, because next week, on Friday, the big discussion about the budget and recovery fund will start in the country. Bye. Have a nice day.